You can already speak English, but you don't feel confident that you sound good and that you come across as a senior manager when you speak. What can you do to sound better? Let me share with you some guidance I always give my clients. Let's crack on then, shall we? Hello and welcome back to Confident Business English. My name is Anna. I'm a neurolanguage coach, and this is the podcast if you are a senior manager and you want to build your confidence communicating in English. So let's jump straight in. As I said in the introduction, you can already speak English, but the thing is that I know sometimes you feel like in the back of your mind that you don't sound very good. You don't sound executive, or perhaps maybe even that you feel you don't sound professional. And of course, as a senior manager, all of these things are things that you want to transmit when you're speaking in your own language, but also when you're speaking in English as well. And it is possible to do, but I actually want to start by sharing with you a personal story, and this links into the points I'm going to talk about today. 2 years ago, I actually hired a communication coach. And this was partly because I felt like, look, if I'm giving guidance on how to communicate, I really should be looking at how I communicate. Communication is part of my job. I mean, I do a podcast every single week. So I have to be conscious of the way that I'm coming across. I also wanted to push myself and challenge myself. And I know that you like to do those sorts of things too. But this was a shock. I turn up at the studio. The coach's name is Edward. Really nice, very friendly. Turn up. It's like a big setup, lighting, cameras, recording from all angles. He gives me a microphone and he says, stand in front of the camera. We're going to record it. Sell me your podcast in 1 minute. Oh my goodness. It was so bad. It was awful. Because I was so nervous, he completely put me on the spot. But it was such a good learning process. The worst part, though, was after when he said, okay, we're going to watch the recording back. That was painful. I do not enjoy being in front of the camera, and I'm not a natural. There are some people, you probably have like colleagues like that who are just really good at doing that sort of thing, public speaking or being in front of a camera or whatever. It's not my strength, and it was painful to watch it back. But as I said before, I learned a lot. The pieces of feedback that he gave me were, stop saying which is a filler sound. He's like, you lose credibility and it just sounds bad. Stop saying it. And every time I would say it, he would interject and interrupt me. He also said that I said like too much and I was too repetitive when I was speaking. I didn't have like enough range. Too monotone. And also that I was doing this really annoying thing with the words. So he said, your cadence is off. Like you sound weird at some points. He was really direct with his feedback. And initially at the beginning, I found it a little bit hard because he was just cutting straight to the problem. But overall, I'm really glad that he told me that because I was then able to improve and get better. And his message was not trying to criticize me. He wasn't trying to demotivate me. What he was saying was, yes, you've actually got some really good points here, but here's how you could make it even better. I want to take that message through in the episode today, because when I talk about some of these things, you might recognize some of these habits that you have, but I'm not trying to punish you with this. I'm not trying to demotivate you and say, you should never do this. It's just, you can already speak English and that's the most important thing. And that's great. But here's how you could do it even better. And if you want to try and do it, great. If you don't, no worries. Let's have a look at my first point on the list. And this is simply to be in control. If I spoke really fast like this on the podcast and every point that I said was like really fast and I was sort of saying it like this and then, okay, point 1, point 2, and then, going on to the next point and going like this, it puts you on edge, right? It's kind of like, it makes you feel tense. Well, if you speak like that with other people, they have to try and keep up with you and it can make people on edge. And it's hard to follow you. The more controlled you speak, the better. And I say controlled, not slow, because I know that if I say slow, in your head you're thinking, oh, I don't want to sound slow. This is some of the reactions of some of my clients. So it's to be in control. Second, filler sounds or words, but when I started my public speaking club, they were like, it's sounds, not words. So fine, we'll go with that. All of those beautiful sounds. The goal with filler sounds here is not to avoid them completely. They are a natural part of speech. The point here is to try to avoid filler sounds becoming a distraction. If you're using them excessively, then that might be something you want to work on. But we're not going to punish ourselves for using one or two filler words. It's totally natural. It happens a lot. If you notice yourself doing it, or if you've had that feedback or you get a sense, that could definitely be something that you want to work on. Why? Because it can be a little bit irritating and, like I said, a distraction. For example, if I said after kind of every word, so it's like and we need to do this, so we might need to think about this before. How would that come across? Well, it would come across better if we could reduce them a little bit. How can you do that? First things first, as I said before, if you speak in a more controlled way, you're giving yourself a little bit more time to work on these other elements. You also just need to be aware of it. Maybe you don't even know that you're doing it. How can you do that? Record yourself, ask a trusted colleague. Then target problem areas. You're not going to be able to correct all filler sounds at once. That's not the goal, remember. Notice problem areas. For example, sometimes it's when people transition into certain things, or it could be after starting certain sentences. And then, once you've identified the problem areas, the point is to try to force yourself not to say anything in those moments. And it's normally in the gap when we're thinking about something. So filler sounds are when we're thinking normally. So you can either hold the sound, so just don't say anything, hold the silence. Or another alternative, which people say, is that you can actually introduce a new word. I don't know. I find in my experience that it's just better to try to hold the silence. Next, another way that you can improve how you sound in English is to identify if there's any words that you repeat more than necessary. Let me give you an example. Every week after I record the podcast, I unfortunately have to go back and listen to it. This is an extremely painful and uncomfortable exercise, which I do not enjoy. But what I learned from it is there are some really annoying things that I do. For example, I repeat saying so, now. I also say and I elongate it, which is a classic thing as well. And I've tried to work on it. I'm definitely not perfect. But these are some of the words that I repeat all the time. They don't really add anything to my message, and it would sound better if I reduce them. And maybe you've actually noticed that when you've been listening to the podcast, you're like, oh my God, here she goes again, another word. If there are words that you repeat, and I'm thinking about another client as well who would always say basically this, basically that, like it was nearly in every 4 or 5 sentences, that could be something that you might want to look at. Nobody's going to die if you keep saying basically, but you could use an alternative. You could try to stop using it. For example, with basically, I would recommend alternating with essentially. That can be a nice way to do it. Or you might be one of these people that says, you know. And it's like, no, I don't know. Or maybe I do know, but it's not really adding anything to your message. Let's wrap up. If you lack confidence with how you come across in English and you want to sound more executive, there are some things that you could have a look at that you might want to improve. I'm going to repeat from before, these things are not mandatory in understanding your message, but if it helps you feel more confident, then I definitely think there are things that you could look at. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't really care, whatever, then fine. But if this would help you feel more secure when you're speaking, then you might want to look at these things. Number 1, are you using a controlled pace? Secondly, are you using an excessive amount of filler words when you speak? Especially in activities like presentations where you have to prepare and then deliver. And remember, we're coming back to this point. If it's a distraction, a couple of filler words here and there are absolutely normal. I do them all the time. But if it's distracting, that could be distracting from you and what you're trying to say. And as a senior manager, you've got important things to say and you want to get those things across so that people listen to you. Thirdly, and finally, are there any words that you are repeating unnecessarily or phrases, maybe something you always say? And here I'm not talking about basic vocabulary or more standard vocabulary. Are there things you're always saying all the time? And especially if they don't really add anything to your message, like, basically, so. That's one of my favorite ones, but I love it. So you're not going to get me to change it, unfortunately. So how can you take action towards starting to address this? Because this is what it's all about. If you want to build your confidence, you have to take action. It's not just good to listen to the episode, and that's great. That's a good first step. Record yourself. This is such a powerful exercise. Record just you speaking in a meeting if you can on your phone, for example. If you have the copy of a meeting, go back and listen to it. It will open your eyes, and that could be positive. Okay, you might feel that there are some constructive criticisms that you would give yourself. Or like one of my clients, actually, she always makes me laugh because she says, well, actually, it's not as bad as I thought it was, which was a nice reaction. It is not comfortable to listen to yourself. This is something all my clients say. I've not had one client say, oh yeah, love watching that recording. Love it. Great. Really enjoyed it. No, everybody hates it, but that's not the point. The point is that you can make yourself aware of something, maybe even some of the things that I showed you today, or maybe not. Maybe you think that you've got a big problem with filler words, but actually you don't really, because remember, it's only if they're distracting. It's not if you've just got one or two there. You could also as well ask a trusted colleague, somebody whose opinion you really value and you know that they're going to give you neutral and honest feedback and their intention is to help you. Maybe a mentor or your boss, maybe if you have a good relationship with them, a peer, for example. Reach out and ask them for some reflections on how you speak. And you can be specific to try and get the feedback you want. Do I use any particular filler sounds? Do you feel I speak too fast sometimes? Are there any words that I repeat that sometimes are distracting? You can ask them those specific questions. All right, we're going to leave it there for today. I hope that you enjoyed that episode. Something a little bit different, not necessarily focusing on the technical English part, but more about the delivery. But as somebody who's a more advanced speaker, it's very hard to extract the two. They come together, the technical English part and the delivery. They are one, so we have to look at both of them together if you want to improve. If you really get a lot from the episodes and you find them very valuable, then definitely sign up to my free newsletter, which I send every single Friday. Thousands of professionals around the world get this into their inbox every week, and they really like it as a compliment to the podcast. And I put extra tips on there that I don't include on here. If you want to sign up, go to the link in the description box. Thanks again, as always, for squeezing in your training on Confident Business English this week, and I will see you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.